If you want ratings, sometimes you have to get ratings with tongue here on Views Your Please. A vile visit the Bajor. My name is Joseph.
Coincidentally, the Memory Alpha featured articles of Ryan's, and wouldn't you know what that thumbnail is? That Enterprise episode. Sex sells, huh? I'm your co-host, Peter.
Peter, what episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine have we watched this week?
We're jumping right in, huh? You have a lot to say about this thing? Because I think we're going to need some...
I do, actually. I have a ton to say about this thing.
Season 4, Episode 6, Rejoined. Teleplay. Well, story by Renee Echeverria. Teleplay by Renee Echeverria and Ronald Moore. Directed by Avery Brooks. What would you like to say about this episode, Joe?
First, I would like to say that this is one of the rare moments where I actually already know what you think of it because of how you described it as we were texting each other to coordinate recording.
Mm-hmm.
You had to delay because, quote, I kept falling asleep trying to watch this boring fucking thing.
That was on what?
Yesterday.
Tuesday or Wednesday?
No, it was on Friday. It was on Friday night.
I was describing earlier in the week because I had some free time at a hotel and I tried to knock it out and I kept falling asleep. And then I tried to finish it last night. And boy, the YouTube rabbit holes I went down
to not engage
while this thing was just droning on in the background. I posted some really cool links in the trauma support group Discord. I found a lady who takes 8 pictures of herself, like 8 video streams of herself at different points, and she does covers of stuff like Thundercats. And she has a cover of Knight Rider and Airwolf that are both excellent. I highly suggest checking that out. I watched videos of people getting tartar removed from their teeth with water picks.
Oh, wow. That is actually quite fascinating, isn't it?
I'm obsessed with those videos.
Yeah.
Those are a guilty indulgence of me. Those and back cracking videos. I watched a lot of... I watched absolutely everything YouTube could show me to keep me away from this wretched piece of shit.
I got the impression that perhaps your opinion was negative. Yes. I think it's a mid episode. I certainly don't hate it. I don't hate it like you hate it. I think that there is a huge failure in execution in not doing enough to really flesh out this relationship in a way that connects with the audience in terms of who they were and why it is that they continue to feel the way that they feel with each other. That stuff is just basically fait accompli in the story, and it's definitely held back by that a lot. However, I did not hate it. I think that, quite frankly, Terry Farrell and Susanna Thompson, who plays Lena Khan, really tried hard to make this material work, and they do a good job of being in this sort of dormant relationship being renewed space in a way that I thought was pretty good. For a Trek romance stuff is typically pretty tough to pull off. They pull off the chemistry with each other and everything. But of course, that's not the reason this episode is famous. And that's actually what I think is the most interesting thing to talk about. It's the meta. This was the first on-screen same-sex kiss in the United States on television. And Trek has a bit of a history as it relates to these things because they had the first interracial kiss on television in the TOS era between Kirk and Uhura. By the way, famously, Bill Shatner screwed up the take over and over and over again on when they wouldn't kiss in case they wanted to use that, just so that they would have to use the one where they kiss. Just a funny Bill Shatner story. But this became controversial at the time in 1995, which is difficult to think about here in 2026. 30 years later, we're like, really? That was controversial? 2 girls kissing? Huh.
Literally every TV show right now.
Yeah, and I feel like that there's almost too much emphasis on trying to satisfy a certain predilection as it relates to progressive politics when it comes to sexuality that is making doing on-screen romances very awkward, like normal heterosexual ones. But this was kind of back when the shoe was on the other foot, and it was like weird to even acknowledge that there were gay people.
What year
Neither
was this?
extreme is neither extreme is good, but the memory alpha on this is long as fuck as a consequence of this.
I don't know if I mentioned it. First aired October 30th, 1995. Take everything you said. I don't care about any of it, man. This is just a fucking shit episode because it's a Trill episode, and I am now permanent set in stone. The Trill are a bad species. The Trill should have been a species of the week that the Enterprise encountered and then left in its warp wake. And that involving a Trill as a main character in Deep Space Nine was a big mistake.
It's funny that they've played with this idea the first time the Trill showed up on TNG, if you remember, because it was the guy was the Trill and he was dating Crusher, and then the Trill went into a woman's body, and Crusher's like, "No, I'm sorry, I'm not into chicks."
Yeah, sorry. We'll pick this up in Deep Space Nine if you want to see the girl on girl kiss, because it's 1990 whatever, and you're still on dial up, and it's not going to be until let me see here, because I'm eager to talk about things that aren't this episode. When did streaming free porn? Oh, here's a good one. This is Ask Historians: A History of Internet Pornography.
Oh,
there's a Netflix show I would like to review.
Anything to not talk about this episode, indeed.
Because there's nothing really ultimately to talk about in this episode. I can knock the whole plot out in one sentence because it's that. All right, so they're going to say May 2007 is when Pornhub launched. Let's see what I'm always a bit an X videos guy. Prior to that, I mean, you'd have to go to torrent sites and download entire movies, and it's like, well, geez, the streaming thing seems like so low budget and crappy. Why wouldn't you want the entire movie? And little did you know, once you could get streaming high def, like the idea of downloading a video just seems so archaic and stupid.
So if we can temporarily return back to Star Trek as a topic,
we cannot. But, by the way, didn't you just watch season 1 of
Starfleet Academy? You'd rather talk about season 1 of Starfleet Academy.
You want to go on by that while I dig into this X videos launch date.
So the Trill like lifespan with the symbiote idea has been touched upon
2007 by the way
in this episode, or in this series, right? We did an episode in season 1, we did some episodes in season 2 and 3 where we're trying to like tie Dax back into her past lives. So a lot of stuff with Curzon when like, oh hey, I was banging someone's wife, and so with the trial, or his Klingon buddies show up and Jedzia's like, no, I can go, or like I'm having a problem and the Triller will just going to kill me rather than deal with the fact they put a serial killer, put this in a serial killer once, or I need to deal with my trauma by having all of my friends embody different hosts so I can talk to them and then find out Curzon was in love with me, which is like the most basic bitch thing of them all. Or I get to train a Trill acolyte to see if he's worthy of being joined. We've tried a lot here, right?
Sometimes Dax is a exemplar of Trill and apparently considered one of the all-time best. Sometimes Dax is portrayed as this rogue outcast, garbage receptacle that they just put the worst of the worst into, and is this perpetual fringe citizen. There's so much stuff I hate about this episode. And I think the worst of I can't even say it's the most impactful offender of this episode is that there's no B plot. There's
nothing to cut it with. Yeah.
Here's the plot. Dax's ex-wife comes in on a science mission, and the Trill aren't supposed to ever go back to an old romance, but they fall back in love. It's very taboo. And in the end, she saves her life, but she leaves anyways.
That is the plot. And
take everything between that plot point I just gave you and pack as much fucking asinine technobabble as humanly possible in. This is one of the worst technobabble offender episodes I've ever heard. There is nothing to this plot at all. The entire thing feels like a glass showcase around a girl kiss, which I, in 2026, 17 or 11 years after the foundation of X videos, could not give a flying fuck about. And I'll tell you what, even back in 95 or whatever, I knew where my dad's dirty magazines were. I still didn't care about this thing, or wouldn't have cared about this thing. I didn't even remember people talking about this. There is nothing to this episode that is worth a shit. And the fact there's no B plot, and we can go back to many banger episodes this season alone. We're only 6 in, and they've diluted amazing A plots with a B plot. Like, this will be what I go back to for the rest of the episode and be like, hey, here's a B plot that kind of gets in the way of something good going on. Why wasn't this part rejoined? There was not an entire 45 minutes worth of story here. And yet they dedicated the entire episode to this fucking shit. There should have been Ferengi hijinks going on in this.
I would say in part, yes, you could have cut it with a B plot. The alternative is they needed to devote more of the time that they decided to invest in this in fleshing out an understanding of these two's pre-existing relationship. Because this first stumbling block that you run into when you're watching this is, she shows up. Oh, there's this big moment of warning of like Cisco calls Dax into his office and said, hey, listen, you need to know that Liana Khan is the leader of this Trill group of scientists. And because the Defiant has a warp core that hungers for souls, it's strong enough to like generate the power necessary for this experiment. So we're going to help them out with it. I guess that's probably the best part of the episode for you, is when the fucking cracks of hell open up in the fucking Defiant engineering room
the
yet again.
Warp core compartment at this point may as well be a haunted house.
Yes.
This thing has been shown on screen at least 3 times, maybe 4 times. And I want to say this is the 3rd time it has actively tried to kill people.
It has been shown 3 times, and all 3 times it has been the danger zone. It is.
I mean, not just danger. It's not like, oh, they're like active, horrific death opportunities. The only nice part of this episode I can say is it shows you for the first time, I think, someone walking on a force field, which is pretty cool.
That was pretty cool. Although I'll adjust what I had to say. I think we should officially term the Defiant engineering room not as the danger zone, but as the danger room.
Normally, so now you're good. Well, this is going to be a shit episode anyway, so if you want to fucking kill us in the algorithm and YouTube punish us with copy. Also, in things that are interesting, that 8 cello girl that I put the links up for, she has an excellent X-Men cover to that.
Oh, wow. No,
I'm telling you, she's great. Get in there, dig around. What was I complaining about? I've already figured out how to fix this episode, and I'll just say it right here. This should have been the Herman's Head episode. The one where Dax breaks all of her personalities out.
Because it could have given me the context of them talking amongst themselves about it. Yeah.
Hey, your ex-wife's showing up because she's on her way to do something. And this, is going to be posed to you as like your one chance to really reconnect. Should you talk to her at all? You're going to fall back in love. Should you stay away? Whatever. It to cause a fracture or some sort of a deep, like something fundamentally psychologically should break in her. And it should have been her being like, in these moments of great stress, we can break out our personalities and basically defrag your mind.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, that absolutely gets to what I was just saying of like, you needed to do something with the Trill part of how this whole complicated relationship drama works for you to connect with what's going on. They just didn't do that.
And then you have the ex-husband, like, I love her or whatever. And some of the former things are like, we should get back with her. It's worth the sacrifice of us, whatever. And then some of the other ones saying, this is bad. We need to observe customs. It's unfair for us to sacrifice ourselves to death and hurt. Like, you could have gone through
at war with herself of like, what's my belief versus the belief and feelings of my prior hosts.
I would love it if Jadzia herself as a person was exposed with all the other previous personalities extracted, her being like, I don't love, like, you could have made this really beefy, and you could have created this thing where the Trill are just, at times there is not a harmony, and there is a violent dissent in what to do, and like the Trill and the not dissociative identities, but like, the multiple personalities that exist within the Trill versus the host. And this could have been a great example of like just things not on the same page. And you could have still had these scenes with them together. You had a whole fucking episode to play here instead of this wormhole bullshit, which, starting with that, tell me 3 things about the Defiant, Joe.
It's real good at shooting guns. It's got a cloaking device, and it's really small.
What does part of being really small mean? What was one of the first things that Sisko told us about the Defiant in the wardroom when he just showed up out of nowhere with this fucking thing?
It's built to fight.
Which
doesn't have science stuff.
Does not have science stuff. It doesn't even have bedrooms. It has bunk beds.
Yes.
It has a haunted house for a warp core. There is no science parts on this. Okay. This is what they do in this episode, which is what we've joked about before. This is a recon vessel. This is an attack vessel. This is not a let's go out and do science like it's the fucking Galaxy class Enterprise D. It's not No Birth. What they're doing in this episode is they're taking, we're going to go do science with this. They took a fucking steak knife and they jammed it into a table, and then they put a slide where it's jammed in the table, and someone's standing there like a fucking idiot looking at the tip of the handle being like, oh, this is a microscope now. No, it's a knife. You can't use a knife to look at fucking amoeba. All right. This is ridiculous. This should have been.
They did spackle to say like the warp core of the Defiant is exceptionally powerful and capable of creating the conditions necessary for the creation of the artificial wormhole.
Bullshit. There's no fucking science sensors on this thing. Again, if I'm going to try and fix, and I'm focusing on this because it's smart writers. It's Renee Echeverria. It's Ronald Moore. This thing is such a fucking flimsy piece of shit excuse for an on-screen kiss to drag this in. It is insulting. These are people who know goddamn well. You have a Nebula or a Miranda or anything else pull through. It's the ship she's assigned to. Hey, blah, blah, blah. We're going to go do this because it's got to be here. And then Dax goes, I'm going to insert myself because I, being the highest ranked science officer on the gas station here next to the wormhole, have had the most access to study and observe the things. I'm now a Starfleet expert on wormholes by proximity. And all the times we've had to diffuse problems with this thing trying to collapse and fucking kill us, I'm going to get on the ship with you.
Yeah.
Not drag the fucking Defiant off on this thing that's like, and that's the problem is, as respectful as Deep Space Nine has been to the lore that is created, this episode just flies in the face of all that. And the worst offenders to all of it is going to be the portrayal of Dax, her relationship with the planet Trill, and Sisko's interaction with it. Because like that's where I really started perking up was his later speech. But like let's try to just get through this thing. We're 20 minutes in, which is about the time we'd be starting anyways. Hey, we're gonna use the Defiant for space experiments, which is ridiculous. An armada, two, even one runabout would have been better equipped for this thing. Hey, watch out, your ex-wife's coming. Watch out, old man. You want to go take some of that fucking PTO you've racked up? No, I want to fuck around and find out. Okay, cool. Well, go meet her on the airlock. Also, Worf, who we've just brought in and announced him as commander over what?
He is the strategic operations officer. He is commanding the Defiance for the mission.
Okay. That also includes, he's now the bellboy who shows up to say, hello, welcome to the hotel. I will take your luggage. Here's where your rooms are.
Well, I mean, it is kind of what he used to do on the Enterprise, you know? It's kind of the doorman.
Does Worf add anything good to this episode? No. That's a question we're asking ourselves now. Worf he's not bad in it, but he adds zero value. And
Worf is in the episode so that Avery Brooks doesn't have to be for most of it. You know, he's like nominally in command of the Defiant, so that role is fulfilled while Avery Brooks is directing.
Yeah,
That
but
is
that
the
also could have
utility
just
of him.
been that is a strong utility in this, but it also could have very easily have been Kira Reese, who then, in her proximity, could have been like, hey, you should follow your heart.
Well,
Hey,
this episode is so bad. Lieutenant Commander Norwood is the one who's in the engineering in the danger room downstairs, and
yeah,
not Chief
like what's the
O'Brien.
security guy doing? Well, they both have gold uniforms, so sure, yeah, put section 31 or whatever this guy really is, and he the fuck out of here. So Worf's the bellboy. Where do they go from here?
So the team shows up. We have the that used to be my wife. You get a funny little Quark tries to figure out what's the whole relationship drama is, and it gets explained to him and therefore the audience.
Yeah,
And so, back when Dax was a man, Tarius, Lena Khan was in a host, Nalani, who was a woman. They were married, and obviously, since then, Dax has been through a few hosts and is now on Jadzia. Assumably, the Khan symbiote has been through a few hosts, and now it's in Nalani. And here's where the missing piece is for me. We don't get enough context about how, like, why is it that Lena Khan is so much like the person that Tarius Dax married, that Jadzia immediately is still in love with her. Like, I can buy that. I'm watching Star Trek. I am ready to buy this, right? I'm
mm-hmm.
at the store. I'm
Mm-hmm.
in line. I want to check out. But you got to give me something. You got to connect the dots a little bit so that I can buy into what you're doing and give it the credit that I want to give it as the audience. And you just don't. There's nothing there.
The answer is an answer that you don't want to accept, and that the Federation doesn't want to accept and turn a blind eye to, and it is that the Trill symbiotes, slugs, invaded Trill and subjugated this race. And that when the slug goes in, that they are not fully disclosing the degree that these things take over the host. And it's effectively the same person who just picks up some additional memories. And I get that that's not supposed to be, like, it's partially a joke for us or whatever, but me coming in cold and watching this stuff, it is so clear to me that they are telling a story about an invasive species that is subjugated. And that
Correct.
These are vampires living in hosts. It's Krang in his robot body. And yeah, there's a little bit of Jadzia there, but this is Dax. That's why everybody calls her Dax. They don't say Jadzia. You are not who you used to be. You are this new thing that is a cumulative entity. And that you have empirical evidence right here that you're exactly the same as you were before. You've just picked up a couple new personality traits, and maybe you've got boobs now or whatever.
And we've already mentioned it, but it's the inconsistent portrayal of this idea that makes it so that the lack of clarity is what makes this episode, despite what I think is a strong, dramatic, romantic performance on the part of your two primary characters for this episode, it still ultimately is not very good. I don't hate it like you hate it, but
give me time. I'll get you.
Okay. You know what? Sometimes you do convince me, but we joke about this theory because there's a lack of other explanation. And at this point, the lack of explanation is clearly incompetence, right? Like, unfortunately, this isn't a circumstance where they intended to imply this, because they at times make it very clear that Jadzia's identity is paramount, and that her other experiences as it relates to the Dax symbiote are complementary to her, but she is in control and in command of what's going on. And then you have this, which actually implies the opposite, because you just gave us nothing to understand why she would just immediately feel this way. And it leaves the episode feeling cold, and you're really just stuck with two people who are trying their best as actors to play out the tension they've been told exists and do a good job of it, but the audience isn't there. They haven't been pulled in to what's going on, and it just feels like I could be watching any fucking soap opera.
Yeah. And I'm very curious if any of these complaints about Dax or the Trill as a species existed back in the 90s. Or if
I don't think
me
so.
watching this stuff right now as a 43-year-old who has seen so much other media and has higher expectations on things, if I'm just picking up on stuff that nobody ever put a second thought into and that superficially, hey, this thing that accumulates memories, it's good enough. Or if they're sitting there in the writer room and Ron Moore, who is a very intelligent writer, is just like, fuck, man, how do we make this thing interesting? Like, there's been a lot of, like, if he's in the writer room specifically on this thing, because he knows that every other Trill entry that Deep Space Nine has done has been complete ass. Trying to salvage some interesting shit out of this. When they're explaining to Quark or they're all talking, because again, all of these people were involved in her Herman's Head episode, right?
Yeah.
They all know damn well. They've all hosted people. Like, this is just, hey, let's fill the audience in on this stupid thing.
My God, you just hit on something that would have been amazing. What if everyone that embodied a different one of her hosts suddenly were like, listen, I had Tarias in my head. In fact,
Yes.
Julian had Tarias in her head.
Yes.
Holy fuck.
Yes.
You'd have been like, no, I know what you mean. I had that man's memories in my head. Listen, Dax, like, don't
you need to
it.
do this.
Or don't do it. Do it or don't do it. Like, you could have had him go either way, but he could have.
They all could have interacted. You didn't use any of the cast for this. Like, again, I hate the fucking Trill. I hate Trill episodes. And I hate that I can sit here watching these awful episodes and go, there's a right way to do this thing.
Yeah.
You're going to give this no B plot. It's going to be nothing but this. Again, drag everybody else in. You've given them the tools. And I think this would have been more appropriate for her to have actively broken this thing out. But you already did the episode. You can't go back in time. These people, everything you're saying, they carried the memories. Everybody could be involved, either directly arguing with Jadzia or talking to this lady, whatever, like, I carried this or whatever. So,
or talking amongst themselves. Like, they all come together and be like, we need to talk because we need to try and
what a
convince
great
Dax
lingering
what to do.
side effect.
And that's the reason why the ritual exists, because these, Trill societies figured out that the symbiotes need the assistance of the people they're close to that, have this experience and being, having a piece of them in them to help advise them and talk to them about navigating the special circumstances that they're dealt with. Oh my God, we're geniuses. We could have fixed it. Where were we 30 years ago?
This is dangerous. This is why it's bad for Trill to go too far away from the homeworld, because when we let other people embody these, the hosts' adherence to our taboos isn't there, and now you have situations where we're encouraging you to get involved again with our goofy Starfleet lovely ideals, instead of it being your friends and family on Trill that all be like, nope, listen, we got to stick to the customs. What you're doing is wrong. Like that would be a great layer. A million ways to do this better. When they're going through,
you could, like you said, you could have cut out. I think the more to talk about this is how we could have improved it. I want to continue this. You cut out all of the science stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You cut out all of the dopey bullshit with the other Trill present. It's just her and Liana Khan. Mm-hmm. And instead, your A minus plot, your semi B plot, is all of the characters that had one of the pieces of Dax in them during
which is everybody
ritual. And you bring them all together and they're all like, we all need to talk because we're watching Dax maybe make a really big mistake. And they're like, talk about, how they might try to intervene. And it's specifically Bashir, who had romantic feelings for Dax for a long time, who was Tarias, who might be the one to say, nah, let her cook. Right. And that's the tension of like, no, I was the person that was in love with that woman. And yeah, it's very like she is feeling the intensity of his love for her. There's no, they're fucked. There's no way that we're convincing them not to do this. And that's them conspiring to try and find a way to communicate or break this up or advise Dax or do something is the plot instead. And then you do have all the little romance stuff between the two of them, and you've given it all context. Now you're not wasting Susanna Thompson and Terry Farrell going for it because you've built a story around it.
You're also making a previous bad story worth our time.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm always willing to afford through necessity, because Voyager and Enterprise were so bad at times. Like, okay, here was a shit episode. I could go back and get something worth my time out of it. And now there's a retroactive value.
And it explains why Cisco wouldn't be present because he had the psycho in him, and he's like, I have nothing to add to this.
You're not invited to these conversations.
You're right.
Go punch somebody. Speaking to that, though, so Duran was in there before Curzon. And I think that's maybe something that I wasn't keeping in my... like, what a cursed Trill. Curzon comes up so much in this episode. I'm fucking sick of this character. I do not like the character of Curzon. I like the idea that Cisco had an old friend and that Cisco would want to talk about Curzon. But there's no reason to talk about Curzon to the degree they do in this thing. And again, it just feels like they want to put attention everywhere on the Dax character except for on Terry Farrell and Jedzia. And it goes right back to the Herman's Head episode where Curzon wants to live on forever. And Curzon didn't want to let you into the program because he had a crush on you. Everything about your character begins and ends with Curzon. And here you are, some other guy way before, generations before Curzon, was in love with you. Curzon has nothing to do with this at all. And still, she talks to her ex-wife more about Curzon than she talks about herself.
Yes. Yes, that is wild. Although, again, like the idea that they're talking about the hosts they've had in between they last met is like a topic of conversation I could see the two of them having as a way to like, you know,
in D&D terms or RPG terms, it feels to me like Curzon is the game master's old personal character. And every chance he has, the game master has to talk about their old character comes up and everybody has to sit there. Yeah, that was a great character. Wow. Oh, wouldn't that be fun? And then meanwhile, everybody's like, dude, fuck that character. It's dead. Please just tell the goddamn story. We're tired of talking about your dead character. So then what I thought was going to be the most egregious part of this comes up, and it's this conversation. I think that I don't even know who happens because I've been in the process of falling asleep while it's going on. But it's like, hey, there is this cultural norm. There is this tradition that Trill have to let go of the past. That includes letting go of old parents and siblings, children, lovers, whatever. And like that was a very impactful thing to me to think about, like death, loss, to what it would be like to be like, man, my husband died in a shuttle accident, which also the Dax symbiote really loses hosts in some violent fashions. Like,
yeah,
this thing is cursed. And the amount of fucking difficulty, not difficulty, but like we know that these things are sensitive and you got to like tiptoe around them. But the times this thing has been pulled out of a near corpse is just ridiculous. These aren't peaceful end of life transfers.
No, like Curzon was something of an exception. Curzon is also like his dominance of the Dax personality makes sense when you recognize that he got the Dax symbiote probably when he was young, because all of the Trill acolytes are, and then lived to be past 100 years old and died peacefully, evidently. And
Fair.
That means he probably is the person who had the Dax symbiote for the most amount of time.
Yeah, everyone else died after about 15 minutes of having it, and he really got to soak his juices into the slug.
Yes.
Give me a story. If we're going to talk about Curzon nonstop, give me a story where it's like, yeah, there's these outliers that are really dangerous, and they can actually taint the symbiont and like overpower them. And we try to avoid those, and we didn't know that Curzon was going to be one of those, and that's why Curzon's is. And at this point, I'm willing for you and me to say that's canon, because Curzon, again, is said more than Jadzia, probably in any episode of Deep Space Nine. I bet you they say the name Curzon more than Jadzia, even if it's not even a Trill episode. Hey, so I just watched my husband die. And I mean, we've all been through grief, and luckily I haven't been through like real grief of a parent, but I've lost grandparents and I've lost friends. And to know that, hey, this, not even a ghost, but like they're out there.
Mm-hmm.
This absolutely is a rule that makes sense. Like, this is a society that could not move forward if you knew that your son was still alive. Actually, kind of like the deep level of fucked and incestuous and tied up in its own shit and homes being broken. Hey, I'm married. I got a new Trill, but now I'm going to leave my wife to go back to my old wife, or
Can't
however you
do
want to
that.
slice.
Yeah, no, it's apparently a rule they had in their series Bible from the rip to say like this is how we have to prevent an aristocracy of the joined, is that there's this strict taboo about leaving behind your intimate relationships, and it makes sense that friendships are not included in that
We're
because
going into this. I
are
am
we
not conceding that, but
okay
what
okay
you're
well
saying right now.
let's debate it.
Well, hold on. What you're saying, real quick,
yeah,
is the only piece of evidence that I can say disproves that the Trill is a conquered nation. Because if it really was an invasive species, that absolutely could have just been these vampires that use like the warlord, right?
yeah,
From Voyager, and it would just be this ruling class of altered carbon sitting in ivory towers of wealth and power, cycling through hosts and maintaining who they are just with different faces. The line that the Trill need to let go of the past, parents, siblings, children, blah blah blah. And yet Dax is there specifically because she has a strong relationship with Benjamin Sisko that she is there to support as a close friend. Like, I don't buy this exemption at all. And I get what you're like. Go present your side.
friendships are a kind of tier down from the romantic and relationship entanglements that we're referring to, right? You said it yourself. There's something about like my child is still alive, my spouse is still alive, my brother, my mother is still alive in another person, and if I don't create a strong social taboo against reassociating, because those bonds are incredibly intimate, that there will be a strong temptation to continue to revisit them. A friendship, as much as they can be enduring, obviously, is just different, and it's they're things that naturally end. I don't know else to put it. Like, it is very atypical to have a friendship that endures for decades, right? It just is. Like, people that you knew when you were in high school, you aren't typically going to continue to associate with into your middle age and into your old age. There can be exceptions. Military veterans tend to do that because they build their bonds under the most intense form of group trauma. Essentially, they're killing people together, trying to endure horrors. But for the most part, these are things that are part of these relationships that they can be strong, and then they typically do go or fade or become less prominent. And so a trill society saying, okay, we can't make it so that everyone you've ever met you can't associate with. That would be chaotic in the other direction. So what's the line? How do you draw a line to say this is what's permitted and this isn't? And you say, this is where it is. Family relations and people that you have had sex with. That's who you can't go back to. Okay, I get it. I understand it.
I don't buy it. It's bad writing. It's a ramrod. Hey, it makes.
Do you not concede that there needs to be a line?
They wanted to bring a Trill in, and having a past connection with Sisko is good.
Yes.
I like Sisko having an old confidant and a new face. Sisko and Dax are a cool pairing. Jadzia, like, that's all fine. The reasoning in getting into the nitty gritty is not fine, and it's stupid, and it's these guys just tripping over themselves, and every time they do a Trill episode, they add more rules that contradict the old rules.
Yeah,
and in this
okay,
case,
fair.
the core concept, which is Dax is here specifically because of something that she did not want to let go, and she's going to go support her friend. And it's this deep ass friendship that I would say really puts them on the level of brothers. And we could say, okay, well, let's look at Dax as the rogue that does not want to be anywhere near Trill because she hates Trill. She hates the Institute. I'm sorry, it hates the Institute and lives in this Deep Space Nine refuge of outcasts who are better than the people they're running away from. And that's something we've talked about before, right? Odo's
Correct.
better than the other changelings.
Quark's better than the other Ferengi, and so on, yeah.
Worf is better than the other Klingons. Kira is better than the religious people. Miles is just there. because
Miles is just working hard, but yeah,
someone's
like
got to keep the place together. Look, you know,
it is a strange parallel where TNG is the best of the best. Deep
mhm.
Space Nine is its own version of the best of the best. It is a doctor that's better than everyone else too. Like, but it's better than everyone else in the way that's isolated all of these people from everyone
It's an
rather
island of broken toys. They're broken in that they ignore their iPhones that refuse to throttle the battery after 2 years
than
to make you buy a new one.
Yeah.
You put them in there, and it ignores this core feature of Trill society now. And my bigger myth in all of this, and well, I'll get to that in a second, but it's reinforced that nothing is more important. Like in this, I think it's Cisco lecturing her, maybe, or again, I'm fuzzy on this, but nothing should be more important to a host than protecting the slug, which again, strong entry into conquered people, cult, whatever, right? But like, I need pushback from Jadzia in all of this against Dax. And there needs to be some clear conflict of her as a person being like, she's not into this. She's happy that I'm happy. She enjoys the feelings, but there is a sense of duty that this human host, whatever the body has, that this is wrong. And this is, she is condemning this thing to death, because what's going to happen is if we do this taboo thing, we become exiled. We're not hunted down, but we can never be, our Trill can never be reassigned again. And we know that the slugs are a valuable commodity. They are born slow. They wish they had more of them. They don't. And it's a big fucking deal. So again, putting the rule in there that the prime directive is to keep my slug alive makes this an even harder pill to swallow. I need Jadzia to have some degree of agency where she's pushing back against this or giving the blessing. Also, it makes Starfleet service really seem psychotic, especially where she's at. And like, hey, there's a war coming. Like, people should be like, you've got a very precious thing inside you. Should being sitting at the Alamo, you're bad for what you're doing. And that can reinforce the fuck the rules, I don't care. And that's another conflict. Again, sometimes Dax is like, fuck the rules. Sometimes Dax is like, I'm a paragon of our civilization and people come to me for my great input on things.
There's a lot that you just said there that I think is worth diving into. I think,
please, by all means.
Yeah,
because I don't want to talk about technobabble.
Joined Trill probably I think Joined Trill would be something you would want on the front lines because they have more experience with things than most. So there's like an additional EV of having them there.
Starfleet would want them there.
Right. And that's like that's the give and take, right? Like if Trill is going to be part of the Federation, they've got to allow Joined Trill that want to be part of Starfleet to have their own agency and do that. And I don't think that that's being challenged by this episode. Actually, let me turn for a moment to Susanna Thompson, because we haven't talked about her yet. So we've seen her before. She was the Borg queen that wasn't Alice Krieg. We talked about it when we did like those Voyager Morgue episodes, Dark Frontier, Matrix Zero, that she was in. That she was actually.
Joe is saying Morgue. If anybody hasn't listened to our back catalog, there's a real hair up our ass about the Borg portrayal in Voyager, because you took the big bad boogeyman of Next Generation and turned them into fucking clowns in Voyager.
Yeah, so it's their Swedish cousins, the Morgue. They're not really the Borg. And Susanna Thompson tried out for being the Borg queen in First Contact, didn't get it, and that's why she was kind of like the understudy that wound up getting the Voyager episodes. And she showed up in a couple TNG episodes. She's a pretty famous working actor from the 90s and 2000s. My favorite role is that she was Queen Rose in Kings, the show that we bonded with Feral Historian over, or I did anyway. And she's a great actress. She provides screen presence to everything she does. She takes everything seriously. And she and Terry Farrell definitely were able to dial into romantic tension with each other, right? They had the dinner where they're all catching up. They do the looks with each other that make it look like they really convey that they have passion. And I'll say it, They have the best stage kiss I think I've seen in Star Trek. They just do.
Yeah, there's spit hanging between the lips. They really get in there good.
They get on. They got
Nice
in there.
job, Avery. Did you have them like swish their mouth with like syrup before they started?
Yeah, how many takes to take for that one? Because he definitely got a good one. But
it's a good conflicted guilty indulgence kiss.
Yeah, it's built up. The build up is perfect, and then like the moment of pause and the walk away. All of that's great, actually. Like there's 20 minutes of these two being like dealing with the fact they have strong feelings for each other, and that it's driving them to do things that they really need to think about if they want to do or not. And it's a shame it's wasted in the morass of not being able to service its own story.
The morass
could have gone
technobabble.
I could have gone actually for this romance story. Like the romance story that's here is very interesting, and the actors are definitely going for the tension. Like Terry Farrell plays the guy, right? Like she does a good job of being she was the man in the relationship before, and she's embodying that role again. You can see what she was trying to do as an actor of like, oh, I had this guy who's part of the Dax symbiote that was in love, and I'm the husband, and you're still the wife, right? And our relationship pattern is still in that space where I'm the one who's very sexually interested in you. And I like that. That's showing that these people are taking the material seriously. And that's, to me, the biggest shame of it all is nothing's worse than me than a good effort wasted. At least in like terrible episodes where no one's trying, like nothing ventured, nothing lost, right?
Those
like
don't really happen in Deep Space Nine, though, man.
That's true.
That's why this thing's such a fucking miss. I also would have gone for like they're picking boring former characters of hers, like former hosts to associate with, because like the guy who was married to her was like the magic trick guy who's like a shut-in introvert and like very Mr. Mimbly seeming, if I remember correctly, right? Like he's the one that pulls out this.
Tarias Dax was a Chad. Oh. She was doing the magic trick of a different Tobin.
Okay,
who was the Mr. Nibley. Tarias was the Chad that Bashir was in, who was like playing with fire and shit. And
he was
shuttle accident.
A test pilot.
Pilot, yeah.
You got Hal Jordan or some sort of Tom Paris person, and I guess if you frame him as Tom Paris, like it's a little bit easier to put a vibe to. I could also just gone that there's just a weird chemistry attraction that's just persists across, just that there's just such a high compatibility between these. I don't know. This is where I fall asleep. They just start layering in the technobabble. I dip out. When we come back in, it just becomes clear that Dax has lost an unreasonably high number of hosts through dangerous bullshit.
He tries to go for it again when the gates of hell open in the Defiant engineering room.
What I like in this episode is seeing Dax be mousy and Dax be unsure and Dax be on weak footing, because this season especially, Dax has come in very confident and smug and fucked a lot of people's stuff up and then dip out, right? This Loki trickster god or whatever. This is the most vulnerable I think we've ever seen Dax. Most willing to make dangerous and stupid decisions that are bad. And all of the wisdom that this character has just be completely absent. So it's a nice change of form, and it's a good chance to see Terry Farrell get to just express these vulnerabilities and rope other people into the bullshit. And just very clearly, like, I cannot be the adult here. Julian, I need you to lie and help me facilitate this thing I know is wrong. Benjamin, I need you to be the parent in the room, the adult in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Again, too much focus on Curzon. The other Trill in this episode, there's what's her face's brother, and he's all right. And there's the guy who I call Cuck Spy.
He is like lurking in the background.
Yeah, like, oh, what are they doing? I'm assuming he doesn't have a Trill, and I'm assuming he's incredibly jealous, and this dude's just a fucking hater that is eager to ruin other people's good time.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to talk about. They have the kiss.
Well,
There's the big discussion that Cisco and Dax have about her decision that she wants to pursue the relationship.
and that's where I want to really chime in here.
All right,
Okay.
let's. This is probably the last thing worth talking about, so let's dive in.
You can tell whatever story you want, and you can change things however you want, but you've also told very potent stories about the bad stories, ultimately bad episodes. And Cisco's been present in all of these, right? Cisco, who exists as a slap in the face to the rule that Trill need to let their past go. She is here specifically for Cisco. He is an affront to their tradition, right? And they are both willing participants in that. And he's going to get up there and he's going to lecture the shit out of her. Like, she came there looking to like talk, and he just gives her a fire and brimstone lecture. Like, what you're doing is wrong. You cannot do this. You know you shouldn't do it. Your culture, your heritage, the rules, this, that, blah, 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 blah. And then he says at the end, but if you know, if this is something you do want to go forward with, I'm your friend and I support you. Right. So it's not like there is a line in the sand and I refuse to even consider the alternative, but like he puts everything into it. This guy knows that Trill is a bullshit planet. This guy was willing to burn their fucking society to the ground and say, either you heal Dax or I'm going to expose your global conspiracy to everybody, Federation founding member, because you guys are liars and fucks. Your rules are bad and you are a society that is built on lies. So him being the person to sit here and hammer this stuff as you must obey tradition is so unpalatable to me that it just trashes what's left of a trash episode.
Well, I disagree with you on this. I think that I can accept both. I can accept that obviously we've seen Cisco be willing to turn the screws on the entirety of the Trill planet for lies and deceptions that would have potentially resulted in the death of Dax or death of Jadzia specifically. And also that he recognizes that this taboo is absolute and he's giving the right advice that Jadzia needs to hear from him as it relates to her responsibilities to this symbiote. Because it's not to Trill society, it's to the Dax symbiote, right? Mm-hmm. The thing that's in you, Jadzia, the thing that has made you who you are, that is the thing that you have to think about right now. That is the thing that needs to be. Before I fought to preserve you because they wanted to sacrifice you for the symbiote and they didn't have to because they didn't want to reveal this secret. This is a different story. This is a social taboo that's going to cut you out of ever being put in someone else ever. The Dax symbiote from being put in anyone else ever again. And we know from their previous interactions that when she was Curzon, he was the one who was often having to be like, shut the fuck up, dude. You need to straighten up and you need to be serious. And this is him doing that again for her when she's like, I'm considering doing something really fucking stupid. And he's got to be like, no, bitch, don't do that. Like, this is what are friends for, but to tell you, don't be a silly goose. And I don't think that it's breaking anything. I think these two facts can sit and not contradict each other.
I think everybody that is on Deep Space Nine should be completely over Trill's bullshit. That he should understand that Dax lives away from Trill because it's bad. They try to kill her. They're liars. There's conspiracies. They're corrupt. And again, he was on the forefront, ready to burn it all down over their bullshit. And the one thing that he says here that carries weight, and that is, if you do this, it's the death sentence of the symbiote slug, because you cannot be rejoined. You're outcast, and she's going to be outcast too. And that's that. Cisco, who has said the establishment is flawed, you guys are liars. This is a bullshit scam, and it's you guys only wanting to give the best of the best to the slugs, which I think still supports a conquered nation, whatever. They got colonized, right?
Right.
Okay, well, there's an episode, it's a one-way ticket to hell. You're dead. not hell, but it's an early death for something that should continue. And we've always said that the hosts are a series of links, but it's the slug that whatever that terrible line is. That also sounds very slavey. There's an episode. I don't know if you remember it. We didn't really talk about it much. I think maybe Kira might have gotten in a fight and got beat up by a prostitute. Does that ring any bells?
The one where the guy shows up to take the Dax symbiote and
Ops of Rage, yes.
Ops of Rage, yes.
A guy who wants a symbiote bad enough that he hires Tim Russ and Spice Williams.
Yes,
take over an entire. There is clearly a black market. There's clearly a gray market. I can't call it a gray market. That is absolutely a black market. People want to do this. You can do these joining ceremonies elsewhere. Trill does not have a monopoly on giving you a new host. They could do their own off. Like, this is not a permanent death sentence. And again, if it was any other TV show, I'd say, well, they're not going to go back and reference something like that. This is fucking Ronald Moore. This is Renee Echeverria. This is Deep Space Nine.
Them, yeah.
You can do this stuff. If you know that the authority is flawed and they've got a bad policy, and you can help your friend and say, you know what, fuck Trill. You don't ever want to go back there anyways. You're your own woman. You're independent. You do it. And when the time comes, if we got to swap hosts, there are other people out there potentially who deserve to have these things that were told no by this corrupt Trill advisory board.
I think we're going to bring it all the way full circle. The very first thing I talked about was how this episode is in love with itself because it was the first on-screen lesbian kiss. First on-screen same-sex kiss of any kind in the United States on television, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's all they cared about doing.
Yep.
There was no thought process given to what we're talking about.
We just gave you 58 minutes on the dot, more effort in this thing than I think anyone else was willing to put in.
Yes. And that's ultimately what the problem is that they did not want to crowd what they wanted to do. That was the Trek message, social, I'm going to use the phrase because it's correct. They wanted a virtue signal about a social thing that they wanted to put into the show. They wanted to have a on-screen same-sex kiss for the sake of doing it. They wanted to have this big romantic moment between two women, have it pay off with the kiss, and then put that on television. That is what they wanted to do for social reasons, for political reasons, and
ratings.
And ratings. Absolutely. And building a story around this that made sense was tertiary to everything else. And that's why the romance part is good and the rest sucks, because that's not where anyone's focus was. And they probably considered anything that would take away from the romance piece and cloud what's going on with all this continuity would have betrayed their actual reason for doing it, whether it's the cynical reason for ratings or the complex political reason for doing it for the sake of doing it. And that's why I think people who would otherwise you would think would be well positioned to tell a good story around this didn't do so, because that's not what it's not what they were doing.
I wonder if there was resentment on this episode of we're dragging this terrible thing out. The terrible thing being the Trill.
Because it was 30 years ago, everyone just focused on the kiss. Everyone was just like, oh, I can't believe you did that. My children are forever scarred, and people who are like, yay. And that was it.
It's funny, too, because now that girls kissing is like the most boring thing you see on TV, all of the other flaws in this really take front and center stage, and you see the wrapper that they tried to present this thing is almost more boring than the kiss itself by today's standards. I would have been willing to accept, again, had they put the real thought into it and consideration, if Sisko's speech to Dax was, you can't do this. You know that this would create these. If Trill let themselves go back into love, again, the altered carbon concern that we talked about earlier, it would just be a ruling class, and that is morally wrong and a existential threat. Put some fucking teeth on this thing. But no, what you said is completely right. Everything that we said, what if, how to fix this thing, none of that. This is a ramrod episode to get a kiss on screen.
Yes.
And I agree. The both ladies did a great job with the romance. It feels conflicted. The ending sucks. I saved your fucking life. We both want to be together. You should have died. For some reason, we didn't transport you out of there. I don't know why, but I wanted to walk across the force field. We pull in aliens and vent the fucking danger room out into space while we're sitting in a Jeffries tube, cuddling, post-traumatic. If that's not a way to guilt someone into being with you for the rest of your life, I don't know what is. I pulled you away from a plasma fire where like 2 people have just died over the past 3 months. I saved your life. We already loved each other. I just saved your life. Please be with me. Just work here with me.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to go home. I'm not even going to say goodbye to you.
Yeah, we're just going to look at each other as you part ways and the episode ends.
Oh, cool. The valet's here with my keys. Thank you, Mr. Worf. Goodbye. I hope my girlfriend... Oh, fuck, she's up there. Hey, thanks for pulling me away from a fiery death. I didn't want to die like Jonas did.
So what are we watching next
episode? Let me put a star here. Weakest shit contender. And it's going to be the Trill again.
Bottom 3 contender for the whole series at this point.
Absolutely bottom 3. This might... I don't know if I want to say it's the worst. This isn't the worst.
We have to think about some of those season 1 episodes again.
Yeah.
How bad
like Scabbies
Move Along Home was or something like that.
Move Along Home was fine. That's a Scabbies that always comes back and bothers me.
Yeah, that one's bad.
All right, Rejoined. We go into season 4, episode 7. This was just a terrible episode. I had a lot of fun talking about the what ifs and like why it was a bad and like really just... Trill is not a dead horse yet, and it's stuff like this that just makes me... They keep adding so much fresh meat to stomp blood out of.
It's, again, I don't want to spoil you because I'm really looking forward to your takes when it happens, but there's a really big thing that happens as it relates to Trill and symbiotes, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the story. And when that happens and when that change occurs... I'm thinking a lot about what we're saying now in relation to that. And it's like they really didn't figure out what they were doing with this whole Trill storyline until season 7, in my opinion. And it's a real shame that they figured it out that late. But we'll talk about it then. Well, just something to keep in mind over the years as we discuss this. Like, yeah, you're on to something, and I think the writers eventually kind of figured it out for themselves. And when they got another pass at being able to tell Trill stories and joined Trill stories in particular, they took a different line with it that made more sense. And it just kind of ran out of time because by then the story was all metaplot. There was no room to do anything.
Starship Down, season 4, episode 7. This one's gonna be directed by Alex Singer, David Mack, and John Ordover as their writers. I don't remember those. Cisco and the Defiant crew defend a Karema ship when it is attacked by the Jem'Hadar. So, all right, we see what's going on there. Meanwhile, Quark and the Karema trade minister argue about the value of dishonesty in trading before having to work together to disarm a Jem'Hadar torpedo. This sounds excellent.
It is
sounds
actually
like a real palate cleanser.
It is a complete palate cleanser. I mean, it's even got... It does that thing where it's like we got to find a way to put all of our characters on the Defiant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the way that they do that
the science vessel, the Defiant.
The way they do that is they, Quark's the tough one, right, to get on to the Defiant. So they have to have him like with a guest star, and so they got James Cromwell to be the alien that he's
poor guy. How do you take a big movie star? Maybe this is like, listen, if you want first contact, you got to do this thing.
Well, I mean, he was a TNG, role player before, he wound up in
great movies. I love LA Confidential.
But one of my favorite movies, period.
Yes. It's excellent.
We should do that as Patreon just for no fucking reason whatsoever.
God, it's too good.
Well, that's just it. Like talking about why it's good. Like Brian De Palma is one of those directors who like showed up. He had one thing he was good at. And unfortunately, like because he had only one thing he's good at, he just kept doing it over and over again. And it kind of got old. Like I don't know if you ever watched The Black Dahlia, which is like him trying to do LA Confidential again. It was just bad. But when the magic came together in that movie in a way like it has to be seen to be believed.
Snake Eyes. Oof.
Yeah, he's got some rough stuff out there. Any case, thanks for listening to V'ger Please. We'll see you next week.